Hello horse racing fans, the Santa Anita Handicap. At one point, the richest race in the entire world. While it may not be what it once was, the Big Cap has had Oscar-worthy iterations in its time, and the running we are going to focus on today is a cult favorite for longtime fans of the sport, the 1978 Santa Anita Handicap, which was the crowning achievement of the White Tornado, better known on the track as Vigors, given his moniker for a radical come-from-behind strategy and his gorgeous snowy coat. We will briefly go over his origins and how a decent grass horse, in a twist of fate, won California's biggest dirt race. Vigors was born in 1973. He was the third and final mating between Graydon II and Rella Forti, both French breds imported to America. Graydon II has been previously talked about in my video about Jakku, as he was also the sire of That Hard Luck Gray. Their first two foals were named Normandy Gray and Normandy Bay, both named for obvious reasons. Combined, the two horses had won 21 races but were not top stakes performers and were rather blue-collar allowance types. Vigors would stand out immediately from a young age, as he was, quote, white as a sheet. He was bred and owned by William R Hawn, a man who truly lived a full life, being a World War II vet known in both horse racing and football. He was a founding partner of the Dallas Cowboys and president of Del Mar Racetrack for 2 decades. But along with helping run a racetrack, he also owned racehorses and was not unfamiliar with star equines on both coasts. In the 50s, he owned Colorado King, an imported South African bred who won the Hollywood Gold Cup. In the 60s, he owned Kentucky Oaks winner Blue Norther, but his favorite horse, and the best he ever owned in his eyes, was Vigors. He had put a lot of faith into the horse as soon as he named him, as he was named after his friend Tim Vigors, a flying ace in World War II who founded Coolmore Stud. Ironically, the only time Tim would see the horse race was described as one of the worst performances from his career. The trainer was Larry J. Sterling, who trained 5 other stakes winners, but none nearly as good as Vigors. Vigors, in more ways than one, took a while to get going. His style of running was to be a deep closer, staying at the back of the pack until the end and making one big move, where he would be at the mercy of traffic and the length of the stretch. As a 2- and 3-year-old, he only had minimal success. He only won 2 times in his first 16 races. He was both lazy and anxious in his youth, breaking into heaps of sweat before races. But he was sound, running 15 of his first 16 races as a 3-year-old alone, all before September. After a 6th in the Del Mar Derby, he was given a break for the rest of the year. But no one had lost faith in the horse. His trainer Larry Sterling was described as a man who liked to turn struggling horses into winners, so Vigors' initial bad luck was not discouraging. He was clearly sound, but he only had one way he liked to do things. Inklings of his devastating late move appeared as far back as his 3-year-old year, when he once closed the final quarter of a race in 22 seconds flat. It only got better when he became an older horse. He grew up physically, reaching his final height of 16 hands and a weight of 1,150 pounds, as well as mentally maturing into a professional. He won on first asking at age 4, and then finished in the top 3 in 3 of his next 4 races. The horse's big break came when he won the Rolling Green Handicap at Golden Gate, which gave him an invite to the 9th annual Hollywood Invitational Handicap. It wasn't going to be easy, being his Grade 1 debut. His main threat was Caucasus, who had finished 2nd the year before to the legendary Dahlia, in what would be her final win. Caucasus was a triple Grade 1 winner, spanning 2 continents, winning the Irish St. Ledger as a 3-year-old and winning the San Luis Rey earlier that season. The oddball of the group would be Balmerino, a legend on the other side of the globe in New Zealand and Australia, making his first stop in the States. It was a very wide-open race without a clear standout, but not many expected Vigors to win, being a lightweight, asked to only carry 117 pounds, 9 less than the favorite. But with a perfect ride, Vigors humbly gave all opponents a head start and then swept past all of them. Even on this low-quality video of the race, there's no mistake where Vigors was, as he went 6 wide to win his first Grade 1 race, finishing only a 1/5 of a second behind the track record. It was a great moment for the whole team, with many plans being considered afterward, even a nomination to the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. A horse from the Hollywood Invitational would try their luck, but it wasn't Vigors. Balmerino, after 3 off-the-board showings in Stakes Company at Hollywood Park, ran an impressive 2nd in the Arc, losing only to the almost unbeatable Alleged, who won the race again the following year. But back in the States, Vigors did not win again at age 4. He ran decently in California, but was never better than 4th on the East Coast in major races like the DC International. His best race after the Hollywood Invitational was the Oak Tree Invitational. It proved to be a 3-horse race against bitter rivals. Vigors' foes would be Ancient Title and Crystal Water, horses who had slugged against each other 4 times already that year, with Crystal Water having the advantage, winning the Santa Anita Handicap, Californian, and Hollywood Gold Cup. But he had hit a slump after being left at the gate in the Del Mar Invitational, and then being beaten mercilessly twice in the East. Ancient Title won the Del Mar Invitational and was still a great horse, but was an advanced 7-year-old who had won most of his best races in his younger years. But he still had the heart and conditioning to still run great. Vigors had already finished ahead of Ancient Title when he was put on the grass for the first time in the Carlton Burke, but Crystal Water had never raced on the grass. It was, no pun intended, Vigors' home turf. Ancient Title and Crystal Water would fight on the front end the whole 1.5 miles, with only the final stride separating the two, as Crystal Water pulled ahead. Vigors went wide, flying from last place to join the fray. He made up significant ground and maybe with another stride would have won, but Crystal Water held him off to win by a neck. Vigors did, however, nose out Ancient Title for second. No horse was disgraced that day. Vigors ran great to be second. Crystal Water won a Grade 1 on grass in his first try only 8 days after losing in the East, and Ancient Title proved the doubters wrong that he could run at 1.5 miles. It set things up for next season, as they would run again under new circumstances. Despite 2 full seasons of slugging it out with rare wins, Vigors' 5-year-old season would be the exact opposite, being abrupt but also his greatest display of talent. His first start of the year would be the domino that led to his magnum opus. He tried to stay on the grass for the San Marcos Handicap, but weather had other ideas. With rains coming down, the race was forced to come off the turf and be run on the dirt. This change in scenery led to Vigors clenching another graded stakes victory in effortless fashion. It was so good, they tried him on dirt again the following month for the San Antonio Stakes. Crystal Water and Ancient Title were both back. Crystal Water making his first start of the year, and the 8-year-old Ancient Title coming off a win in the San Pasqual in track record time under Daryl McHarg, who was also the jockey for Vigors. It hadn't been a problem the first time, but for the San Antonio, he had to choose. He chose Vigors, and the rest was history. Crystal Water was defeated before the race even began, becoming fractious in the starting gate and smashing his head through the opening. He didn't break loose thanks to a skilled handler, but he cut his mouth and sinus cavity. He simply never showed. Ancient Title would take the lead, and at one point was clear by 3.5 lengths. But Vigors on the far outside ran by him like he was tied to the 8th pole. With a signature swoop in front of 49,000 fans, he smashed the track record for 1 1/8 miles down to 1 minute 46 in the 5th, and won by 7 lengths, despite being a dozen lengths behind the leaders at the start. He had made up nearly 20 lengths over the course of the race. Now any doubt about his dirt ability was squashed. Only 2 weeks later, it was time for the Santa Anita Handicap, a race that defined him as an athlete, but was almost a disaster. He planned to work on the training track the morning of, but during his trip down the tunnel, a horse got loose, running into Vigors' backside. When the chaos was over, and Hawn checked on the horse, he quickly noticed one part of Vigors was no longer white. On his right hind leg was a red gash. He had been kicked by the loose horse. But it was just a flesh wound miraculously, only glancing his skin, and the wound was quickly taken care of with bathing, disinfection, and bandages. Not many of the 55,000 in attendance knew of this, so Vigors kept the role of favorite, with top weight of 127 pounds. As the gates opened, Vigors was given another hit, as he veered outward, bumping into the Argentinian Drapier. He then detached himself from the rest of the field. Vigors wasn't going to make his presence known until later. Up on the front end was the defending champion Crystal Water and Mr. Radoy, the latter being another son of Graydon II. They were going to make him a proud father today. Crystal Water was closer to the pace than he was the year before, stalking Mr. Radoy throughout. Vigors would remain out of frame for the majority of the backstretch, some estimates putting him 18 to 20 lengths behind the leaders. But we all know that wasn't going to matter. It was his day, and he was going to make up every inch and a bit more. He made his move down the backstretch, weaving gracefully in and out of horses, taking the sloppy kickback, but no matter how much mud hit his coat, the big white horse did not lose his color. He swept to the outside, easily running by the exhausted Crystal Water. He had bigger fish to fry. Mr. Radoy had a 5-length lead at the top of the stretch. But McHarg shifted his weight, and Vigors swapped lead legs in a split second, triggering his second gear. All people could see was a giant white horse flying on the far outside, only getting faster and faster. It was truly breathtaking, as he devoured Mr. Radoy's lead before proceeding to open up 2.5 lengths on his own. His win also proved vital to horse racing announcer Dave Johnson, as he brought back a catchphrase he hadn't used in years while calling the race. This phrase would continue to be used for the rest of his race calling career, but it became his trademark, starting with the 1978 Santa Anita Handicap. It was everything great about the White Tornado, summarized in one race. For the first half of 1978, he was a superstar, adding the Bel Air Handicap for good measure, and getting a picture with former child actress Candy Moore, while reading an article about himself, right before his final race in the Hollywood Gold Cup. He won a head-to-head duel in the Gold Cup against that year's co-champion sprinter J.O. Tobin, the first horse to have defeated Seattle Slew, but on the inside rail was an even greater dual surface champion than even Vigors, named Exceller, who snuck up on the inside rail for a sucker punch win. After this lone defeat, an ankle injury would force Vigors' retirement. Exceller would carry on, and later that same year, defeat Triple Crown winner Seattle Slew and Affirmed in the same race, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, pulling a similar rail skimming tactic. Those three were just a couple of the many superstar racehorses that ran in 1978, debated by some as the greatest single year of horse racing. And during that year, Vigors delivered one of the most memorable runnings of the Big Cap. But with his moment in the sun now set, he would return to where he was born to stand at stud, John Bell Farm, where he proved successful, producing many ultrasound racehorses. His highlights were 3 millionaires. 2 of them, Hodges Bay and Real Connection, were horses that had more in common with a different son of Grey Dawn II, Jakku, as they came in second twice as often as they won, but they still had big wins. Hodges Bay took the Canadian International, while Real Connection was a triple Grade 1 placer and a Grade 2 winner, in spite of losing her right eye. And lastly, there was Air Decor, who returned to where Vigors' parents once raced in France, winning the Group 1 Prix de Cadron, a race that is over 2.5 miles long. Vigors would live peacefully until he passed away at age 21. He might be gone, but he'll never be forgotten. Some Big Cap winners were better horses, but not many were as gorgeous or had as much pizzazz as Vigors the White Tornado.